So I'm about to head off for my first Ski Friday of the year. And frankly, the skiing conditions are really not good. They're abysmal, but it's Friday, it's December, and just on general principle, I'm gonna go up there. I'm probably gonna do 3 or 4 runs, but I'm gonna get in my first Ski Friday. So this week I wanna talk about something that's it's a little bit uncomfortable because I'm worried that it's gonna come across as Jeff's bragging about something. But there's a reason behind it, and that is I want to talk about nonprofits and charity and giving and raising money. And it's something that's become a pretty big thing in my life and actually in my business. And we've been able to do some pretty cool things. And the reason I share it with you is that so many of us have followings. We have tribes. We have communities now. Because these days, everyone's a publisher, right? Even if it's just social media, we all have these groups that we can influence. And I'm going to just tell you about how I've been able to influence my community, my tribe, to create a lot of good in this world. So, and then I'm going to share a couple things that really amplified the results we got. So a number of years ago, when I started doing live events, really on a more regular basis, it was like 2009. And from the start, we would have a benefactor, someone we raised money for. And for years, it was kiva.org. And it was really cool because I have a room of 200 people or 100 people or 150, whatever. And I would ask for contributions to this nonprofit, to this charity that I really believed in. They do great work, and they still do great work. And that was really cool. But in the recent years, I've learned some things that have really made the difference. And now in my events, we generally generate between $150,000 and $250,000. In fact, just a few weeks ago, we raised $280,000 for charity water, which is just absolutely extraordinary. They do amazing work. 100% of their charity, 100% of the money they raise goes to creating wells for people who don't have clean drinking water. And it's just an amazing charity, an amazing nonprofit. Check it out, Charity Water. But so this is how I got from $10,000 or $12,000 to $280,000. And something you might want to think about. And part of it is the events have gotten a lot bigger. So instead of having 200 people at an event, now I've got 1,000 people. So, but still, if you do the math, we're doing way, way better on a per person basis. And that is because of 2 big things I figured out. And one, as a marketer, it shouldn't have been so hard to figure this out, but one was to offer. Actually making an offer. So you can ask people to give and say this charity is fantastic and it really needs the money and they'll do good work with it, and you'll raise some amount of money. But I actually put together an offer that said you would get these bonus things if you give to this nonprofit. And all of a sudden the results got way, way better. And then I added in, this is something I learned in my personal giving in my community, is a match. And that's not my idea. It's a age-old idea, but it's something that took me a while to figure out. And I figured out in my personal giving in my community with the nonprofit that I really wanted to support. And I said, I'll give for every dollar you raise in the community for this thing that they're raising money for, I'll match $1. And all of a sudden they went from not being able to raise anything to being able to raise a lot of money because they could go out to their community and say, we've got this anonymous donor who's going to match everything we give. And so I started doing that at my events, is I would match what people gave. And I would hold that back. First, I would get the low-hanging fruit. We would go I'd make my offer, we would get a certain amount of money, and then towards the end of the event, I would say, well, I've got this goal to really get to a certain point. And when I did that, and by the way, from here on out, anything we raise, I will match. All of a sudden, that would explode the results, and we would have a lot more people giving. And then another thing I added in, and this is pure marketer here, you got the marketer mind, is a high-end offer. So typically before I get to the high-end offer, one other thing I did was I set an expectation in our room, in our event, and I would say, I really want to get to an event. What would it be like to be in a room where over half the people gave, where over half the people contributed, even if it was $1? And I gave a room-wide bonus. If we get to 51%, then everyone in the room will get this bonus. And so I basically was enlisting people to get other people to give, even if it was only $1, just to get to 51%, because I'm like, I thought that would make a difference. And lo and behold, we got to like 51.9%. Then a couple of years later, I thought, well, that worked really well when I said 51%. What if I said 100%? And when I said 100, I did a similar thing with 100%, and we got to, I think it was 94%. So we didn't get quite to 100%, but by saying 100%, I got to 94%. When I said 51%, I got to 51%. So that's something to think about also in every area of your lives. You know, personally and with the people you work with, is when you set those goals and those expectations, then sometimes they magically happen. So getting back to the high-end offer, this is something that has worked really, really well. So at our events, we might have something, you get this thing for $20, for a $20 contribution. You get this thing for a $1,000 contribution. And then we would have we had a very high-end offer, and we would start the bidding at like $5,000. And it might be for a really small high-end event, for a mastermind, something like that. You know, super high-end, bidding starting at like 5,000, but typically it would, and there's only like whatever, 5 spots available or 7 spots available. And that would often get up to $10,000 or $12,000 we were getting for those spots. And that's how we, at this last event, combining that high-end offer and the match, we went from the first 2 days of the event for charity water, we raised $120,000. So that was really, really cool. But then on the last morning, I put together, well, it was last afternoon, I put together a high-end offer and I made a match. I said, it's a high-end offer and everything from here on out I'll match. And that's how we went from $120,000 to $180,000 in the span of an hour or two. So some of the things, I mean, I know you're watching this, you might have a differing levels of following, of a list, of a community, of a tribe, but I'm just throwing these out here. It's not the raw dollars that matter. It's these ideas that you really can, in addition to whatever money that you're giving to nonprofit, to charity, to help people out, you can also, you very well might be able to affect a lot more change, affect a lot more impact just by looking at your community and how you can involve them. So just some words. Oh, and one last thing is this idea of communities or tribes of tribes. And it's the next level of leverage. And so I have this small mastermind, this Platinum Plus mastermind, and I brought Scott Harrison, who is the founder of Charity Water, in, and we spent 2 days with him sort of masterminding and helping, working on his business, help him out. But by the end of the couple days, many people in the room pledged to support Scott Harrison and Charity Water and pledged to mail for him sometime this month. And already 4 or 5 of them have. And I think that the results from there will end up dwarfing the $280,000 I raised at my event. So that's like, the idea is like networks of networks. So in this case, I have a network where many or most or all of those people in there have very large networks. If we added up the lists and communities of everyone in the room, it would be into the multi-millions. So by bringing Scott Harrison in and presenting him in that room, we helped mastermind his business, and that's going to do amazing things for his business. But in addition, I was able to expose him to my entire network of people that had networks. So again, I don't say any of this to brag, and that I put off recording this video week after week after week. I tried to shoot this many times, and it just never felt right. But then I just realized that, you know, I have an obligation. I have an obligation because I've learned these things and they've made a real difference in the world, and they continue to make a difference in the world. And I know I've got a lot of people watching these videos every week who could do something just as spectacular or even more so. So I'm Jeff Walker. Wherever you're watching this, scroll down, leave a comment for me, and let's go get them this week.